it's Wild One. This is a postscript to my playthrough for Legendary Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There are a couple of rules clarifications I wanted to share. I went out to Board Game Geek and asked around and got responses that seemed pretty valid, one of them being from one of the chief game designers for Legendary Buffy, Nick Little. So I will take that as canon. So let's start by talking about probably the most glaring violation I committed during my playthrough, which may or may not have had a significant impact on the conclusion of the game. So it's all about the discardability of cards, and more specifically the potential slayer. There are a couple sections in the rulebook that talk about what happens when either you are given the choice to discard a card because of a card's ability, or a card that you choose to be discarded has a discard ability. So there's the "you may discard a card" phrase, which, as it says here, card has to be in your hand, and you can't get anything for what that card does. So you can't get any of the special abilities, even the card's discard ability, unless the card you discard says, "if you discard this," or something to that effect on the card. Then you actually get to do the special ability for that card. You don't get to use the ability for discarding your card as part of the end of your turn, though. It's just like anything else. At the end of your turn, those aren't really discards. It's just cleaning up your play area. But you do get to use the ability when a villain escapes Sunnydale with a bystander, which forces you to discard a card. So that's always good to remember. But then we come to the potential slayer. And the potential slayer has this text on it: "Instead of playing this, you may discard it to advance the light." This doesn't really fall into the category of either one of those, if you discard this or you may discard a card. But I got a response from Nick Little, which was that this is a discard ability that cannot be enacted if you discard this card because of another card that tells you to discard one. So if you're discarding this to satisfy the condition of another card, then you do not get to use this discard ability. The phrasing of this should probably read something more along the lines of, if you were to play this card, you may choose instead to discard it to advance the light. In other words, you're doing it sort of in lieu of playing, or it's a way of playing the card. The act of playing this card allows you to discard the card to advance the light, instead of playing it for its ability, for its 2 recruitment points. I'm not sure really what the best wording could possibly be, but that was the closest thing I could think of, was, if you would play this card, you may instead discard it to advance the light. That makes it clear that it's only in the instance where you are given the opportunity to play it from your hand. When you have that opportunity to play it from your hand, you can use that opportunity instead to discard it and advance the light. Otherwise, you cannot advance the light by discarding this card. The other thing I wanted to talk about was what came up at the end of my playthrough, which was that I had defeated the big bad for the 4th time, and as a result of that, I got a reward. I got to draw some cards. There was a chance that I could have drawn some attack cards and possibly defeated another villain and earned another victory point. Well, as it turns out, when I was looking through the rulebook trying to find something that fit, the closest thing I could find was the optional rules on the final showdown. And it says here that you finish your turn and draw 6 cards as normal when you defeat the big bad for the 4th time. So I took that to mean, well, then this is normal behavior. It's normal behavior. The optional behavior is what comes afterwards, which is when you decide, okay, we're going to do this final showdown. We're going to do this final round amongst everybody trying to fight the big bad. But as it turns out, again, according to the consensus on Board Game Geek, that doesn't account here. You don't use that rule here. When you beat the big bad for the 4th time, you do whatever reward is given or penalty or whatever is presented on that tactic card, and then the game ends immediately. There's no chance to earn any additional victory points after that. So if it was something like rescue 3 bystanders, then you can rescue those bystanders, do the abilities that are on those bystanders cards, and then once all of that has been exhausted, it's over. That's the end. So as it turns out, I didn't do it anyway. I actually had potentially a chance to try and do something, but I ended up not doing it, and it turns out I couldn't. It was against the rules. So I hope this can clear things up a little bit. I think I'm going to try to do another playthrough, maybe against Angelus, which is a far more challenging big bad than the Master is to defeat, and try and play it right this time. Like I said, the potential Slayer is really the one that kind of bit me. I wouldn't say there were countless times that I violated that rule, but there are certainly a number of times where I advanced the light where I should not have been able to advance the light. As to whether it would have affected the outcome of the game, would I have lost instead of won? I think I still would have probably won. I just think the victory point totals would have come out differently. Things might have been, a bit more challenging, a bit more interesting than they turned out to be. So, at any rate, I hope this little video was helpful, and until next time, this is Wild One signing off.